there in Cyberland. Hello, it's me, Ryan Carr. It's the Ryan Carr Show, and we're here live today on Facebook. I'm here with Miss Natalie Arteaga and Mr. Pete Antico. We are going over the stunt news. We're going over the union news and the local Chicago entertainment industry update. First and foremost, Mr. Antico, thank you so much for coming on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are? That would be perfect.
My name is Peter Antico. I'm a 39-year SAG and AFTRA member. I have worked as an actor, a commercial actor, a background artist in 1979 for a year, a stunt performer and a stunt coordinator, and I've also written and produced some things that I have coming up. And I ran for SAG-AFTRA president in the last election.
Yes, and I'm also here with Miss Natalie Arteaga. Natalie, why don't you tell everybody?
Sure. I'm an actress, screenwriter, and I'm a member on the local board here in Chicago. I also served on the recent TV Theatrical Negotiating Committee in LA for about 4 weeks. And I was also a presidential candidate for the Chicago local this past year.
And I'm Ryan Carr. Everybody knows who I am. I got clearance here to do a speed round with Pete Antico. We got 20 questions. We're asking Pete questions about the Los Angeles stunt community and just basically the stunt community as a whole. So, Pete, you ready? You ready for speed round?
Yeah, shoot.
All right, dude. Real quick, when did you know you wanted to be a stuntman?
1979, I met a guy named Antico, who was I want to say probably the world's most premier exotic animal trainer. And he was doing a show called Doctari, and he knew a guy named Terry Leonard. Anyway, he put me in a stunt school named Paul Stater, who a lot of the major coordinators today started in about 77, 78, 79 in Santa Monica, California. So I went there and learned from him. Paul Stater did stuff like the Poseidon Adventure and the Great Race with Tony Curtis. Brilliant old school films. If you haven't ever watched those films, I would suggest that you watch them. The Great Race has one of the greatest bar fights, old school. It's just so phenomenal to watch some of those people work. Old classic stunt performers. That's when it was a very tight, small-knit community, and people used to switch from their E card, which is a background player, to their A card. That was your actor's card. It was so if you got upgraded, you get paid more money, and then you could go back the next day working on your E card. That's how it used to work back in those days.
Is it, has there ever been a stunt person that's run for president before? Is it pretty typical that stunt people stay politically active with the union?
Well, usually not many people stay politically active. I don't believe another stunt performer has ever run in the history of Screen Actors Guild or ACT.
Okay, what is the single most important aspect of stunts? If you could only had to pick one, what do you think is the most important thing that we need to be concerned with stunts?
Well, this is a tough question because we're really creating an illusion, and what we want to do is to create that illusion safely, and because we want to create that illusion so we can get up the next day and go back to work. Because if we do something so big and we're not safe when we hurt ourselves and we're out for 6 months, that defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. If you could guess, and here in Chicago we have 4,400 SAG-AFTRA members. There's somewhere over 100 or so stunt people. If you could guess, I know how many stunt people do you think that there are in the nation? Maybe you have a better number than we do.
Yeah, this is a strange thing because 2 years ago, when I look at the number at SAG-AFTRA, they came up with about a little under 2,400 that were listed as stunt performers. Now, I know a lot of stunt performers in the categories don't understand how to do that because some of them are listed as actors. So to get a true numbers, I would think there would be 5,000, but I would question that at this point. I'm going to try to get the number from national to see actually how many people are now registered as stunt people, because we should actually have our own email list so we can reach our own community. And the thing that shouldn't be so difficult shouldn't be such a lack of transparency. If our community wants to communicate with our community, it should be openly allowed. just like if actors want to communicate with actors, there should be a database where it's openly allowed. This practice of the leadership taking a database and controlling it is really unethical and lacks principle, because it's like creative people should be able to communicate because we could share what's best for us because it's a member-run union, and then dictate what we wish to the leadership. That's the way it really should be.
Thanks, Pete. I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. Do stunt people need to be registered as a stunt performer through sagaftra.org in order to get all of those communications and emails and correspondences with our local stunt leaders and our national stunt leaders?
Well, they don't, because if we were marketing a certain email to the stunt community, then yes. And if they wanted to be registered as a stunt performer, so we can actually gauge how many people actually, do that for a living, that would be better for us. But the communication from the stunt committee comes from the National Stunt and Safety Committee, which I've been on for 10 years. And what we are hoping to do is establish better communications and with all members. And it shouldn't be like pulling teeth to get communications out to everyone through our community, because I've asked for the email list for everyone in our stunt committee for years and years and have never been given it, which is completely disingenuous. And on the local board, I'm going to start making some motions to attain these lists, and I'm going to report back if they turn it down. Because there's something called Title V of the LMRDA, which is federal labor law. Our leadership, national board members and our executive staff and our paid staff are obligated by law to look out for the best interests of the members first and foremost. If they don't do that, they can be filed against, and they can't withhold information to us. We can go down to the union and look at our financial reports. We can make appointments to do that. And they always try to discourage you from doing that. They won't allow you to take pictures of it, though there's nothing secretive about it. So we have to start going by the rule of law and enforcing it with our own union, because David White doesn't run our union. We run our union.
I agree with you, Pete.
Runs it.
I agree with you, Pete. We're going to get more into some of that information later on in the show. I do want to pile through some of these questions. I know I'm asking you hard questions. I said this would be speed round, but I was hoping you would elaborate on some of these things.
Okay.
Do you think that stunt people should concentrate on just one market, like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, or they should concentrate on all the markets when they're first starting out? Do you think it's, yeah?
Yeah, you're going to have to please be clear in your question. When you say focus on a market, what is the story behind that question?
I'd say as an individual stunt performer, when trying to make a career for yourself, should you look into just one market, one town, or should you branch out and submit your information to stunt coordinators all over the nation?
Well, if you're in a business and there was a larger market share in a different location than you were, my suggestion, if you're new, would be go to that market where you have the biggest opportunity to work. If you're in Chicago and there's 5 shows there and there's 100 in Atlanta, you'd have a much better shot of getting employment where they need a lot more people in Atlanta than you would here. If you're an established stunt performer, that's a bit different, because then you can go to all the markets because you've already have an established background, and if some part fits you, you already have the qualifications to be valuable in many different fields. So the net would be wider, and you have an opportunity for people to hire you all over the country.
Right. If you had a brief explanation of why is so much work going to Atlanta? Is there a quick tax credit? Bingo, right?
Plain and simple. Follow the money.
Bingo, thanks. And Pete, you already mentioned this. You're in favor of casting and database apps that connect stunt people, almost like a call-in service, but new technology on a phone, on an app, right?
Oh my God. Well, let me just expand on this. The Screen Actors Guild needs to throw out the dinosauric technology they have. They need to create a new member database that includes augmented reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, facial and voice recognition, so we can track our content and our performances in real time, 24 hours a day globally. Now, then this will flip the residual factor, because then we could tell the studios what they owe us as opposed to them telling us. what they
Exactly.
owe us.
Exactly.
Based upon fact, based upon data.
Based upon tracking it. That brings me to a tracking question. We don't get residuals off of streaming. Are they able to track streaming right now? Of course they are, right?
Of course, you can track anything. You think the NSA has technology that can gather any information from anyone, anywhere? And with metadata, you can gather information on anybody's performance if you choose to put the right equipment in play.
Here's a quick just you, Pete Antico question. Have you ever turned down a stunt job, and why, if you have?
No, I've turned down a stunt job before because I didn't like the coordinators, and I didn't think they were safe, and I didn't like. I may have not liked the job, or the fact is that I had a bunch of other work elsewhere that paid me more money that I thought would be a better opportunity. That's just business.
Why don't you think stunt coordinators get residuals, or why don't stunt coordinators get residuals?
Well, they do in feature films, but they don't on television.
Okay.
They don't on television. They don't on television because the community needs to make a concerted effort and stand together and go to the leadership and say, we want you to fight for this and make it a strikeable issue. But the coordinators, the problem with my peers is that when you're working all over the world so much, everybody's so busy, and instead of saying, no, I don't want to work on this contract, because if every television coordinator said, sorry, we're not working unless you pay us X amount of residuals, this is what we want to negotiate in our contract. And if they say no, then the next guy comes around and they say no. Then they would have no choice because they can't hire unqualified, unsafe people because it'll just get people hurt. And then they'll incur a bigger liability. But that needs to be done. Good luck.
Just a few more quick questions. We're getting down under the wire in our first section here with Pete Antico. We're interviewing him about his thoughts on the stunt community, locally and nationally. Pete, just a few more questions before the break. Should stunt people be allowed to retire early?
Well, it shouldn't be retired early. Stunt people should be allowed to retire at 55 because this isn't something where, hey, I can't, do car hits at 55 and do all the physical things I can. It's like a dancer. I mean, look at some of those dancers that blown out knees. You're going to tell me you're going to go on tour with Janet Jackson or Madonna or Christina Aguilera or Ariana Grande when you're 55 years old and you're going to be a dancer? You're not. If you're not choreographing or you're not coordinating, your work is cut down probably 70 to 80%. You should be able to retire. And by the way, just a note for disclosure, we made a motion. Debbie Evans and Maria Fink made a motion at the convention that was passed that was going to explore allowing people with high impact on their bodies to retire with a full pension at age 55, which I think is phenomenal.
Yes, we've definitely talked about that motion on the show. Do you think, last two questions before the break, do you think that stunt performers should have their own union?
Yes. I do. Yes, I do.
What is your response, and this is the last question we have time for, to some people saying that maybe stunt coordinators should be in the DGA and not SAG?
That's a very good question because I'm gonna put it to you artistically. When you're doing pre-visits, okay, so this came into play. So all of a sudden, I'm just the quote unquote my job as a stunt coordinator. So I'm putting together an action sequence either with cars or fights or anything. I'm shooting it, I'm editing it, and I'm presenting it to the director. Many times they if they like what we do, they take that and they do it pretty much verbatim. So in effect, I have sometimes write the scenes, or if I don't write it and I read it, I create it, I shoot it, I put the angles in, I edit it. So what am I doing? Sometimes I'm writing and producing and I'm directing that, and I'm getting paid as a stunt coordinator. Do I think the coordinator should be in the DGA? I think that needs to be explored. I think it should come in the future.
Perfect. You know what? We're coming in just at the 15-minute mark here. I'm with Pete Antico. It's the Ryan Carr Show live today on Facebook. We're going to take a quick commercial break because we got to chop these into two parts. When I return, Miss Natalie Arteaga, board member, has some questions for Pete Antico as well. Stay with us through the break. Facebook Live. Thanks so much. Okay, out there in Cyberland, and welcome back to the Ryan Carr Show live here every Friday from sunny Chicago, Illinois. Right around now is when I check in with Miss Natalie Arteaga for the union update.
Everybody. So Pete, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to kind of go through these questions with you. Once again, I'm a local board member. I was a presidential candidate in this last election, and I did serve on the TV Theatrical Negotiating Committee this year. So Pete, how did you get your SAG card? What was the job that did it?
Charlie's Angels with Farrah Fawcett.
Oh my God. I think that's the best SAG card story that I'm probably going to hear. That's cool.
Yeah, I did a little martial arts. I did a little judo flip. And, God, I was so excited. I was like jumping up and down. And I was like, wow, I'm in the same union as Charlton Heston and Humphrey Bogart. And it was very exciting at that time to be a SAG member.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
It's definitely that mark of professionalism. So what are important things that stunt committees have accomplished that Chicago can learn from?
The committee, the National Stunt and Safety Committee, my good friend Debbie Evans has put in like a fact page about dealing with our contracts. Because on a set, many times set reps are uneducated and they bring a digest with. You should have copies of your contract language. The most important language that you should have on your cell phones is the travel language and the per diem language, because this whole issue of portal to portal was it's kind of a misnomer, because it's really the travel provisions. There was never anything in the language that stated portal to portal, but there were travel provisions that allowed you, anytime you travel from the producer's base, which is in the language Los Angeles, you would get paid a full day's travel. But if you were located in the Midwest and you flew to the producer's base, like if someone from the Midwest flew to LA, then they could pay you $75 for the travel day. That's been in existence since the 30s. But to say it didn't exist, and the new rule is they can make the travel provisions be like every state in the union is now producer's base. So if you fly out of California now, it's everything on television is now, $500 a day for travel, and you don't get any more turnaround. If you drive to the set an hour and come back to the set for an hour, that's not countable on your overtime, and it's not countable towards your turnaround. So you're going to be sleep deprived, so they can essentially bring you back with 10-hour turnarounds. So that was the lie that the negotiating team came back with, and the president and leadership. And they tried to say we never had it, which is an out-and-out lie. On my website, it says portal-to-portal deception document. You can read the actual contract language that is in our codified agreement, and then you can add, and then I put in bold print, really what the new language was, and you compare the differences. So travel language is important because we're going to lose 15 hours a week, cumulative overtime. Greg Smers and I figured it would be $3,700 to $6,000 a week if working on location in television that we'd lose. That's a trickle-down effect to our pension and health donations, our pension contributions, and our health care contributions.
We'll cover pension and health too, Pete. Just to let everybody out there in the audience, maybe this is your first time watching the Ryan Carr Show. Miss Natalie Arteaga was on.
I was on the negotiating committee.
She was on the negotiating committee for
for this TV theatrical negotiation.
And the way she explained it to me is that even though people go in there and we fight for things as hard as we can, we only really hear the story of, okay, whether we got it or not. There were certainly people like Natalie there that they went in there and they tried to get those travel provisions every day. We really only hear what happens. We don't hear about people
I love what you're saying. Did you vote yes on the contract or no?
I did vote yes on the contract.
And I voted no, but we're both friends.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, you listen, you're lying. But I personally think it was one of the worst contracts I've ever seen in 38 and a half years. They sold us out. They gave away our new media deal. The 300% that they speak of doesn't take into account that the licensing fee on new media can be in 2014. So if Amazon has 100 shows that they haven't produced in 14,
Pete,
they can still use those shows at the old rates.
That is only for grandfathered shows, and I don't want to get into these huge wormholes on travel provisions and portal to portal on that.
Sure.
I do respect your position. I do respect that you both voted down the contract. That's part of what a healthy discourse is. So that's cool. And then what are the stunt associations in LA exclusive to local LA stunt people, or do they include people from all over the country?
Well, you know what? Most of the time, the people in that I know from Stunts Unlimited or Stuntmen's Association, I say they mostly have people that actually live in that jurisdiction. But I do not believe that they're opposed to having people that didn't live there, because I think I think when John Stoneham wasn't living in California, he was a member of Stunts Unlimited. I don't think they're restricted to that at all. I think it's all about the people.
Pete, have you ever, since you're on the National Stunt and Safety Committee, do you know of any locals that don't have a local Stunt and Safety Committee? Are there other places that don't have a Stunt and Safety Committee, and why wouldn't they?
They wouldn't because if there's no traffic there, let's say Mississippi. Let's say there's no movies really being shot in Mississippi. There's no reason to have a Stunt and Safety Committee there. There is a valid reason to have one in Chicago. There's a valid one to have one in New Orleans. Obviously, there's one in Atlanta. But you need to have one in New York. You need to have them in places where there's product being done to ensure that that things get done correctly.
Awesome.
Great. So Pete, what's the most underutilized resource the union offers that stunt performers are not really taking advantage of, or it's something that they just don't know about?
They don't understand their constitution or what their power is. The problem is that the Constitution allows them to put checks and balances on the leadership. And the fact that they do everything in secret, it should be transparent. If I was your broker and you asked me, what am I investing in? And I said, don't worry about it. You just give me the money and I'll do what I want with it. Or if you put money in Bank of America and you never got a statement, would you feel comfortable with that?
I understand the point. Thank you.
That's a good point.
Okay. And then in the interest of fostering, a positive working relationship with the rest of the national board, is there anything that you'd like to sort of comment on or affirm or say or anything like that?
Yeah, I believe most of the national board, most of them, I believe, are people that want to make a difference. I believe in their heart they want to make a difference. However, it's like Washington politics. It can't be a boys or a girls club based upon cliques and groups. It should be based upon data and experience. Like, no one should be allowed to serve on a national board of any union body in any corporation that doesn't make a living in that union. There are many people on our national boards and our local boards that aren't even vested in a pension, meaning they haven't even made 5 years, or I should say 10 years of $15,000 or $20,000 in a year. And the bottom line, there's some people that have been on our national boards that have never made $10,000 in their entire career. Why on earth would anybody entrust or allow someone to be on a board and vote on financial matters that people have? Like if you have a large vested pension and you have financial issues at stake, why would you want someone voting on those financial issues that has nothing at stake? Because it doesn't affect them. Most people vote with their wallet, which means follow the money. If I'm a board member and I have a pension and I want to protect yours, I'm going to vote that way. If you've got no pension, you just want to vote, hey, I want this media contract, I don't care. Well, the pension and health benefits are 90% less than network television. So why would you want to vote on it unless you increase it? You have to have members that have something at stake, and that's a big issue with me. Because I recommend and I would want to implement a qualified national board, which means I don't believe anyone should serve on it without being 10 years vested in a pension, because they don't have the tenure and they don't work the contracts. Look at our executive vice president, for example. I'm sure she means well, but she doesn't have a vested pension in SAG. And I don't know.
On a national.
I do want to steer clear a little bit of these sort of, but I do understand your point. Yeah. I do take your point.
And here, every local is different. Nationally, I can understand setting up, we're big fans of standards on the Ryan Carr Show, but locally, if somebody wants to come and serve on the board, they're lucky to have them. We're lucky to have people want to take part in any advocacy with the union. So I think part of that also ties into, you've referenced even in your campaign, like, do you think there's any credence to a little bit of staff suspicion and people basically on the staff getting their retirement and getting paid to do their job.
Well, look at it's completely disingenuous that a staff member would have over double the pension cap than that of the performer that gave it to them. Their pension caps are $210,000 a year, and they can retire after 20 years service if they're 55 with 70% of the best 5 consecutive years of earnings. So if that was related to me at 55, and so if my average salary for 5 years was $150,000, I would be able to take $70,000. I'd get about $115,000 for the rest of my life. And it's disingenuous and unfair that I have to wait till 65. I have to work 10 more years to get what a staff member has. Now that's certainly not fair that our caps are $96,000. So Tom Cruise has made hundreds of millions of dollars, and a staff member that makes $100,000 a year for the last 5 years makes a bigger pension than Tom Cruise. How is that fair?
I have to ask you this, Pete. Is it fair entirely to compare staff member pensions with member pensions? I mean, I don't want people to get the conception that we need to attack staff pensions and bring it down. They're constantly being hounded by the other side, Universal, NBC, all the people that we negotiate across the table with. And, I'm happy that we treat staff well and that we pay them well and everything. And it can also mean that I want to increase what our members are getting. So I just don't think that it's fair. And I do think it's disingenuous to kind of compare the two to kind of foster some negativity between staff and members.
It's really not negativity. The bottom line is financial. The staff doesn't deserve double our pension. We deserve the same pension as our staff. And the fact that they lowered our pension to 208, that they lowered our accrual rate, because our accrual rate used to be the same, 3.5, and they got to keep theirs, and we got ours lowered to 2, while theirs is 3.5. We got the short end of the stick, and the bottom line is talking about treating our staff well. The 21 top paid staff members make $5.6 million a year, where the average actor is making $5,000 a year.
Pete,
the bottom line is it's completely disingenuous if the staff gets treated the way they do. It should be equal. There's some great staff people that I've worked with for 38 years, and they agree with me that we should just have the same pension. There's some great people that have fought many, many great claims for me. But respectfully, there's a lot of staff that make more money in like businesses than for-profit companies that are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. The bottom line is that we really need to go over the entire financial infrastructure of SAG-AFTRA, and it needs to be audited so we could really see where we stand. And we haven't done that in the light for embezzlements.
And Pete, we're running out of time on the show. We got to start wrapping things up. It's almost like we don't have enough time to talk about all this stuff. So Pete, would you want to come back on the show at some other point and do the show with us again?
Sure, but we could speak. I think Natalie brings up some interesting voices. I'm not against staff. I'm for equality. I'm for equality.
Yes.
All staff, we should be getting the same that they do. So the bottom line is that either you got to bring us up a little bit, them down a little bit. It's got to be where it's equal, so we both get the same pension. And I should be allowed to retire, and you should be allowed. Every actor should be able to retire. They have job security. They work 9 to 5 every day of the week. Actors don't know where their next job is coming from, and they have pension and health security. We don't. Yeah. It's not fair the way it's set up.
And thank goodness for people like you, Pete, that are out there and you give this such attention. I mean, honestly, it's very inspiring to me. We're so glad that we had you on the show. If you guys are just tuning in, we got to talk with Pete Antico today about the stunt community nationally and locally. Natalie and I are definitely firm advocates of having a stunt and safety committee here in Chicago. It's something that is buzzing around town. We hope we see everybody there, not just stunt people. If you're concerned about safety on sets, you are invited too. If you have a SAG-AFTRA card, come to the Stunt and Safety Committee. And if you have anything that you would like to be on the agenda for the first meeting, anything you'd like to talk about or questions before the meeting, please email chicagosscmte@gmail.com. It's the email that we set up for the Chicago Stunt and Safety Committee. That's our email that we set up. And
make a motion in your local board saying that you make I move to enact a Stunt and Safety Committee in Chicago. You should do that on your local board, and then they'll kick it up to us, to us, and I can also do that at the National Stunt and Safety Committee if you wish as well. I can help move that along.
Thank you so much, Pete. Do you have your blog real quick that you want to share with everybody? What's your blog at?
Well, it's www.peterantico.com. And everyone, I'd like you to sign up for it, because the problem is there's no transparency. And Gabriel Gutierrez got to go campaign about this contract, and they spent $250,000 of our dues money having her fly to all the locals to pitch a contract while she was running for president.
All right, Pete, but that was not her presidential campaign. That was something that we were doing to ratify that contract.
I know, guys.
We disagree. I'll just agree to disagree on that, because she used that platform to sell lipstick on a pig.
Guys, we're good at guys.
That's
We got it.
disparaging. That's disparaging.
$250,000 with my dissenting voice. Neither did half the people that I know that voted this contract out. So we got to spend $250 of our money promoting something. We didn't get $250,000 and a marketing team to vote against it and put the propaganda and the facts against it. It's not fair.
And if you guys
be equal on both sides.
If you guys want to see what Pete thinks about that and his investigations on it, you can check that out on his blog. But we are just so grateful that he came onto the show. I want to thank Miss Natalie Arteaga, Bob Beck, the voice of Chicago, in the booth with Jeremy and Jim Nisecki today. You guys tune in every Friday to the Ryan Carr Show live, and stay out of trouble, Chicago. Okay.